Welcome back to Control Alt Lead, the podcast from computing where we talk to IT leaders about what's moving in the market. Today I'm joined by Steve Capper from Carnival Cruises. So Steve, hi, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
So you've had a long and storied history in the construction sector, multi-award winning, including IT Leader of the Year at the UK IT Awards, which computing runs with BCS. What was behind the move from construction to cruises?
Well, as you said, 35 years in engineering and construction professional services. I know I don't look it. But I had the privilege to work with a lot of truly amazing people in those companies involved in massive transformation projects. And I think for me, it was more a craving for a change of industry, really. And like the stars aligned perfectly. In between jobs, I had 4 months of golf, which was perfect. And then I took the role of CDIO for Carnival UK, and that includes P&O Cruises, Cunard, and to be honest with you, I couldn't be happier. And I will confess, I'm becoming a bit of a ship geek. Working in a company that's got 187 years of history is fascinating. And talking about things like Queen Mary 2, it's the only remaining ocean-going cruise ship in the world. And like stories of her crossing the Atlantic are pretty cool. They are to me anyway. So when she's at sea, like the stabilizer bars come out underneath, and it's wider than an A380. And like this, I've got so many facts about ships now that I could share. The balls on a pool table don't move, but I'll stop on that bit. But I thought I'd left engineering and construction, and actually when I joined, during the first few weeks, there was a major refit of one of our ships. And it's basically one huge construction site with thousands of people involved. It's the same complexity as building a new hotel in the middle of a city is actually refitting a major floating hotel as well.
Yeah, we'll come back to that one, but it sounds like they've got the right guy for the job at Carnival. So you sit on the exec board. What does it mean? What does it mean to sit on the exec board at Carnival Cruises, which of course, as you say, covers multiple different brands and is very much a sort of worldwide 24/7 always on operation?
Yeah, I mean, in previous roles, I've had really strong relationships with the CEO, either indirect or directly reporting, but this time it's a direct report and it's a member, as you say, of the exec board. So I think digital and technology plays a major part in our business, and our CEO gets it as well. That's why the role has moved to be direct report. But it's given me great insight. It's changing my experiences as well to see the challenges that we've got as a business. I mean, sitting on the exec role, it's not just about digital and tech anymore. 60 to 70% of my time now is actually helping drive the wider business forward. And that can be anything from sustainability or improving experiences for our guests.
That sounds like a really sort of diverse role, but coming back to the tech for a moment, because I don't think a lot of people consider the IT behind their cruise ship when they're actually on board. So can you talk us through the tech stack on a typical ship?
Yeah, Tom, I didn't either until I joined. I mean, so many parts to a ship. So if you think technologies that drive the ship, such as navigation, there's autopilot, and these things drive themselves. They plot on the map and off they go. Parking sensors, I mean, it's just a large version of your car parking sensors. We've got engine controls, CCTV. And then at the back end, you've got all the systems and technologies to run the operations. So you've got things like the hotel space, the restaurants, the bars, the entertainment theatres, casinos. And then you've got all your non-guest kind of technologies. That's things like kitchens for ordering and food, rotating food around the ship, housekeeping, crew facilities. Then you've got on the things like security, gangway, immigration, luggage. The list just carries on. And I never actually envisaged it was so complex. But one thing that you might not associate with the cruise industry is like flights. So we actually charter planes en masse because we've got thousands of guests and crew to fly around the world to different locations to meet the ships. But then also you've got all the logistics involved around like the food and drinks on a turnaround day, getting people's luggage off, getting all the new luggage on and getting out of there. as fast as possible and as efficiently as possible. But whilst I'm complex, it's not much different to technologies that I've seen or used in other industries, albeit the location moves on a daily basis to another part of the world. So that's a different challenge in itself.
Yeah, well, talking of challenges, I mean, what are some of the biggest complexities or challenges that you face in this environment? Because, again, coming from construction, which is very static, to this very, portable industry, shall we say?
Yeah, I mean, if you think of a construction site, a lot of them finish at about 4 p.m. on a Friday, but this doesn't. And one thing that blew my mind at Christmas time when I joined, I'm thinking, oh, great, I'm going to get Christmas off. And they're like, no, you don't, it's 365. So, you have to take holiday to do that, which is fine. But the fact that our ships operate 365 days per year, they're always on the move, they're always operational. So to carry out major changes, they have to be planned for refit. Those refits are typically every 3 to 5 years. So that's not easy. But a ship refit, as I said, is challenging too, because they're typically concentrated on a 2 to 3 week window where so many things need to be done. It's not just dealing with digital and technology. If you want to refit the bars or the swimming pools or everything else, there's a lot of people involved and logistics and getting equipment to different parts of the world. But often we send our IT teams with the ships. So to carry out the work while they're at sail, while they're sailing, or actually fly people to different parts of the world to carry out upgrades. So, but thanks to satellite technology advancements, we're actually able to do a lot more remote than we ever could. However, this is a highly regulated environment. You cannot just take down the network at any time of day because the CCTV has to be on. So, for example, if there's any kind of fire, hopefully we're not seeing that, but anything, or if if there's a real issue, there's huge implications on safety if the CCTV goes down. So you can't just flip the network and reboot it. Everything's got to be up. So all changes have to be planned rigorously.
So you touched on it a bit there, but how do you handle upgrades in this always-on environment without causing disruption? As you say, it's so important for some of these systems to stay on all the time.
Yeah, I mean, we employ great people. I mean, they live and breathe the ships, right? They're so passionate about it. They know the criticality of these changes and upgrades. And some have even transitioned from working on ships to actually shoreside roles, so even moving into digital and technology. So that's one good thing. The other thing, though, is that any new team members that we take on in our company, I make sure that they go out and actually visit the ships and appreciate it, because you need to see these things in operation to truly understand. It's not about just making a simple change at 5 o'clock and saying, right, bye, and go home. You might affect that ship, and it might be on a world cruise, so it could be off the coast of Hawaii or Santorini, and you might have just inadvertently brought something down. So, as I say, it is a 24/7, 365 operation. But we have resilient systems on board. We've got like 2 data centers on each ship. So often changes, a bit like you do on land, can be made in one data center and then replicated to the other one. So you bring them online at different times. But that's something I've seen in other companies as well. But I can't emphasize how critical it is to test things and plan it well. The last thing you want to do is affect dining for 6,000 guests on board a ship one day, because you can't just sit everyone down at the same time for dinner. You have to plan this and make sure logistics are all in place. So if you've flicked a switch, thankfully they haven't done that, you could bring down dining for a serious amount of people, as an example.
So it's kind of a measure twice, cut once situation, just making sure everything is planned rigorously. And it sounds like you've got multiple redundancies, which is great. 2 data centers on board each ship is amazing. We've got floating data centers going around the ocean, and I had no idea. But how do you plan for, because failure at some point is inevitable. So how do you plan for failure when these ships are literally at sea?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things we've done this summer is said to everybody there's a change freeze. So we're trying to avoid anybody making changes that might affect the ships because they're at their peak. But what we do have on board, we do actually have IT teams that live on board, travel with the ships and obviously rotate, etc. So it's great to have that resource. And then God forbid there's an issue, they have partners that they can call, our key suppliers 24/7. And then also we have teams on shore that they can call upon. And, so as I say, we have a 24/7 operation where there are people awake all night, able to actually jump on and fix anything pretty much quite effectively. And if not, like I say, we can leverage our partners. And then also, again, we have resilience in place. We've, as I said, 2 data centres. We have pretty much 2 of everything. It's like Noah's Ark, just to make sure that that resilience is in place for all our critical systems.
Great. And I mean, talking of twos, you mentioned earlier that you refit an entire cruise ship, which is a small floating city, in 2 weeks. So that sounds incredibly intense. What, from the IT point of side, what does that typical IT upgrade window look like? Refitting a cruise ship in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, a refit, it depends on where the ship's going to be. They need specialist docking for this kind of thing. So they're usually in places like Singapore or Rotterdam. There's specific shipyards that they have to go to. And then we have to carefully plan it. So we try to do all the major tech upgrades in a refit. Because as you can imagine, there's thousands of tasks that need to be undertaken and carried out. And as I said earlier, not just digital and technology, it might be refitting the bars, the restaurants, bedrooms. We have to look at what tech we need and then also logistically get it all to Singapore and make sure it all comes together. And that ship, we don't want it out of use for long. So typically it's around sort of a 2 to 3 week window. And as I say, there's thousands of people involved. So we have to work closely with maritime colleagues to plan it, make sure what we're doing is essential that has to be done in the dry dock. And then if not, if we've got things that have to be done, but not necessarily, we couldn't fit it in to the programme, then as I say, we'll travel people with that ship. We'll look at the best solution for what needs doing. But if you're doing a major upgrade to all the like sort of cabins with the technology, you want to do it while it's actually in dry dock. But if you've got some things to do like replace access points, you might want to be able to do that while it's on the move. So as I say, just make sure that we look at making sure we don't disrupt our guests and make that as zero impact as possible. But it is hugely complex, and that's a real eye-opener for me, moving industries, how critical it is when you're running a 24/7 operation.
Yeah, it's not like the IT teams on board are just having a holiday. They're really there to work 24/7, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I mean, look, what a great career in IT, in the shipping industry, that you get to travel the world and go see different locations.
Absolutely.
Whilst you're upgrading things. It is quite cool.
Yeah. So, talking of upgrades, what technologies are you looking at right now? What's coming up in the sort of Carnival software stack?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at lots of new technologies to enhance guest experience, for example. So it wouldn't be right thing to do if I didn't have this call and mention AI. So primary focus is we're looking to incorporate new solutions into our tech stack. We're looking across all areas of our business operations and how we can leverage AI. So such as contact center to speed up resolutions to customers' queries, looking at chatbots, automating manual processes to speed up the call for our guest. Also, how we can continue to drive fuel efficiencies or our sustainability agenda. I mean, one thing that blew my mind is we actually develop our own water on board. So therefore, when we go to a different port, we're not consuming their resources. And it's quite precious in certain parts of the world. But some super cool sustainability initiatives are in place. You wouldn't necessarily think that, but honestly, I'm really blown away how we take it so seriously, the sustainability part of our business. And then also looking for other opportunities. So how do you speed up the flow of people through the terminal? So can they start enjoying their holiday faster? And that might be technologies like facial recognition when they're coming on board, so they're not having to type things in. Visa checks, because the last thing you want is when we're visiting different destinations, somebody not to have the right visa. So putting that into the app and things so that it can all be checked in advance. what we're aiming for is you turn up to the terminal and you literally breeze through without any real checks, because we already know what you look like. We've checked with immigration checks are in place. But honestly, I could talk for hours, like many other examples where technology is making improvements in our business.
You said right at the start that you've become a bit of a ship geek, and I don't think that's unusual. I think that anyone who joins a new industry becomes a bit of a geek about that industry. So I had no idea that the Queen Mary 2, when its spars are out, was wider than A380. I'm taking that fact, and I'm going to try and see if it comes up in a pub quiz somewhere.
There you go. There's many more I could fill you with, Tom.
Look, Steve, we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining me today.
No
And
problem.
I hope that all work at Carnival continues to go as smoothly as it has been so far.
Thank you very much.
To our audience, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Control Alt Lead. Coming up, we have interviews with CIOs and IT leaders at APEM Group, Synergy Bank, and many, many more. And if you can't wait until then, you can always visit computing.co.uk for more interviews, research, and analysis. See you soon.